You think you know what a man wants, but what if I told you that everything you've been told about love, desire, and loyalty is a lie, a well-dressed illusion, a carefully marketed fantasy designed to keep you chasing scraps? Because the truth is, he doesn't want your body. He doesn't want your beauty. He wants something far more dangerous. He wants to feel something he can't name. And that is where your power begins. Not in your smile, not in your curves, but in what you awaken inside his unconscious. That's where Carl Jung was right. What controls us is what we refuse to see. What haunts us lives in silence. And the right words, whispered at the right moment, can set off an earthquake inside the male psyche. Not poems, not declarations of love, but truth, raw, intimate, seductive truth. Say this in his ear, and his soul will never rest again. But don't say it if you're not ready to be unforgettable. Because first, you must understand the wound. Every man carries it. A deep scar hidden beneath his ego, a hunger disguised as dominance, a longing dressed as ambition. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't even know it exists. But it rules him. It chooses his lovers. It builds his walls. It turns his silence into violence. You've seen it. The man who vanishes after passion. The one who says you're too much. The one who ghosts you after making you feel divine. It's not you. It's the shadow he's running from. And when you speak to the shadow, he listens, not with his ears, but with every shattered part of his inner boy. The boy who wasn't seen. The boy who wasn't enough. The boy who learned to perform love, but never receive it. So say this: I see the part of you that you hide from the world, and I'm not afraid of it. Say it when he's quiet, when he looks away, when his walls go up. Say it in a whisper, not as a weapon, but as a mirror, and then wait. Because what happens next is not comfort, it's combustion. You will touch something he thought was buried. You will make him feel unsafe, but not in a bad way. Unsafe in the way that makes a man abandon his mask. Unsafe in the way that makes him question every conquest, every performance, every carefully built identity. He won't know what hit him, but he'll never forget who did. This isn't manipulation, it's revelation. You are not here to seduce. You are here to awaken. And awakening is violent. It tears the soul from its slumber. But that is the only kind of love that endures. The kind that exposes. The kind that disrupts. The kind that brings the shadow to light. Because until a man faces his shadow, he can't love you. He can only project his mother, his fears, his needs onto you. And that's not love. That's possession. That's dependency. That's spiritual laziness dressed as romance. You weren't born to be his therapist, but you were born to be a mirror. And when a woman becomes a mirror, she is no longer ordinary. She is sacred, dangerous, divine. He will test you. He will try to pull away. He will mock your depth, call it dramatic, call it intense. That's fear. That's resistance. That's his unconscious clinging to the familiar. But don't shrink. Don't soften. Don't explain. He doesn't need comfort. He needs collision. Collision with the parts of himself he has avoided for decades. When you say the words, those sacred, simple words, you're not just whispering into his ear. You're speaking into his soul. You're unlocking a gate sealed shut since childhood. And whether he admits it or not, he will feel it, like lightning under the skin, like hunger he can't name. The truth is, most women never speak to a man's soul. They seduce his flesh, they flatter his ego, they decorate his cage, but they never open the door. Why? Because it takes power to do that, and power scares us. We've been trained to be pleasing, to be soft, to be digestible, but pleasing women are forgotten. Powerful women are etched into memory. You must choose. Do you want to be liked or remembered? If it's the latter, then speak the language of the soul. The language Jung spent his life mapping. Archetypes, shadows, longing, redemption. Speak it not with complexity, but with clarity. Not with noise, but with presence. When you whisper, "I see you," you become the first person who ever did. Not the mask, not the performance, but the real him. The one he locked away because the world told him that being seen meant being weak. And suddenly, his heart is no longer his own. It belongs to the voice that dared to see his truth, to the woman who didn't run from his darkness, but danced inside it. That is love, not comfort, not obedience, not predictability, but revolution. And only those who speak to the soul ignite that revolution. But here's the truth no one dares to say. Most men have never truly been loved. They've been admired, used, tolerated, but not seen, not held in their wholeness. The sinner and the saint, the warrior and the child. They've built empires of performance to avoid that unbearable emptiness. They wear charm like armor, confidence like disguise. And you were taught to worship that image, to desire the illusion more than the man. That's why you've always felt like something was missing, because you weren't connecting with a soul. You were dancing with a projection, and now you're awake. Now you see. The performance doesn't impress you anymore. The image doesn't satisfy. You want more. You want essence, substance, depth. That is terrifying for both of you, because when a woman wants the real man, the boy inside panics. He trembles. He fights. He hides. Why? Because the real man hasn't been claimed before. He's untouched, unvalidated. He's starving. And when you reach for that part of him, you become dangerous. Not because you're cruel, but because you're sacred. Sacred things are always feared first. The feminine is not soft, it is wild. The anima, as Jung called it, is chaos. Not chaos as destruction, but as disruption, as awakening. The feminine burns illusions, and when you speak to a man's shadow, you become the fire he never knew he needed. But remember this, the shadow does not want to be exposed. It resists. It mocks. It defends. So when you whisper truth into his ear, he may recoil, he may laugh, he may disappear. Do not take it personally. That is his war, not yours. Your only task is to stay sovereign, to stay rooted in your power. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to choose. You are not here to be chased. You are here to ignite. If his soul responds, he will rise. If it doesn't, he will run. And both are answers, both are gifts, because the right man doesn't run from your depth, he drowns in it. When you say, I see the man you don't show the world, you are giving birth to something ancient. You are calling forth the archetype of the king, not the tyrant, not the boy, but the king, the man who governs from within, the man who dares to feel, the man who stands naked in truth. But understand, a king doesn't emerge from comfort. He emerges from chaos, from heartbreak, from the ashes of false identity. And you are the catalyst, not his savior, not his mother, but his mirror, his storm, his awakening. Say this in his ear when he's cold, when he's distant, when his eyes go dark and he tries to shut you out. I know you're afraid, but I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to meet you. That sentence, spoken not in weakness but in fire, disarms his unconscious. It breaks the trance. It interrupts the script. Suddenly you are not the girl who begs. You are the force he can't define. And in that moment, he sees you. Not as a lover, not as an object, but as truth itself. That's the moment he starts to unravel, to question everything, to feel what he's never allowed himself to feel. This is where most women stop, because it gets uncomfortable. He pulls away, he shuts down, he disappears, and your own shadow screams, "You're not enough, you're too much, you've ruined it." But that's the test, not of his love, but of your truth. Can you hold your voice even when it shakes? Can you speak to his soul even when his mind rejects you? That is your power, not to be adored, but to be undeniable. Jung said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. You're not here to be liked, you're here to transform. And if you dare to speak truth into the dark, if you dare to love not his image but his shadow, You will be etched into him, not as a memory, but as a myth. A woman like that cannot be forgotten. She becomes a symbol, a whisper in the back of his mind, a trigger, a dream. He may leave, he may return, he may fight it, but he will never be the same, because once a man's soul is seen, he can't go back to sleep. The illusion cracks, the mask falls, and love, real love, begins. But you must understand what happens next. When a man starts to feel what he has suppressed for years, what society, fathers, and culture told him was weakness, there is chaos, emotional chaos, psychological war. You have cracked his mask. You've touched the anima, the feminine within him that he exiled long ago. She is not sweet, she is not safe, she is wild, raw, divine. And your voice, your presence, your courage to see him, she remembers it, she rises, and suddenly he is torn between who he was taught to be and who he truly is, between ego and essence, between fear and freedom. That's the battlefield, not between you and him, but within him. And you are not the enemy. You are the storm that reveals what was always broken. Most men are terrified of this moment, not because they don't feel, but because they do, more than they've ever admitted. You trigger the flood, and he doesn't know how to swim. He drowns in a sea of memory, of unmet needs, of repressed rage, of shame, deep, heavy shame. Not from what you've done, but from what he never healed. That's when he'll push you away. Say you're too intense, that he needs space, that he's confused. Don't chase, don't shrink, don't dim your truth to soothe his fear. But that's what wounded women do. You are not wounded anymore. You are awake, and the awakened woman does not beg. She stands, she breathes, she waits, and if he returns, it's not because you convinced him, it's because his soul recognized yours. That's what you want. Not a man you lured, but one who found his way back through the storm you stirred. That's loyalty. Not from fear, not from control, but from recognition. And recognition is sacred, rare, unshakable. So what do you say in his ear that binds his heart to yours? It's not poetry. It's not seduction. It's not cliché. It's the words that pierce the unconscious, the ones no one has ever dared say. Say, you don't have to pretend with me. Say it when he's guarded. Say it when he's cold. Say it when his armor is screaming. That phrase is a sword. It cuts through the noise. It speaks to the child inside, the boy who had to perform to survive, the boy who learned that love was earned, that silence was safer, that being himself was dangerous. You don't need to touch his body. You've touched his memory. You've whispered to the most fragile part of him, the part he didn't even know was listening. That's what creates bonds that time can't sever. That's how a man remembers you years later, in the arms of another, not because of your beauty, but because of your voice, because of that one moment when he felt truly, dangerously, gloriously seen. Most women don't reach that place, not because they can't, but because they're afraid. Afraid of being rejected, afraid of being too much, afraid of awakening something they can't control. But you're not afraid anymore, because you've faced your own shadow. You've sat with your own silence. You've cried your own ancient tears. That's why you're powerful. That's why you can speak into his wounds without losing yourself. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And you are not just a woman. You are a mirror, a fire, a voice from the unconscious. You speak a language no one taught you, because it was born in your blood. Let others play the game. Let them flirt and perform and decorate the cage. You are here to open the door, to tear it off its hinges, to walk into the darkness of a man's soul and not flinch. That's why he'll never forget you. Not because you said what he wanted to hear, but because you said what his soul was starving for. The one thing that echoes long after the body forgets. You don't have to pretend with me. And when you say it, don't look for a reaction. Don't demand tears or confessions. Just say it, and let the silence do the rest. His shadow heard you. His anima felt you. And something inside him, something ancient and holy, will never be the same again. Do you think he forgot you because he stopped calling? Because he posted photos with another woman? Because he said he's moved on? Let me tell you something that will haunt you and free you at the same time. Men never forget the woman who spoke to their shadow. They forget the ones who performed, who played nice, who told them what they wanted to hear. But the woman who saw through the act, she never leaves. Not because of attachment, but because she awakened something that no one else ever dared to touch. She didn't beg, she didn't scream. She just whispered truth into the silence, and that echo never dies. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Most men are ruled by their unconscious, but they think they're in control. That's why love terrifies them. Real love. The kind that demands death and rebirth. The kind that shatters identity. The kind that forces them to face the child within. And when you say, "You don't have to pretend with me," you are calling that child to the surface. You're not seducing the man. You're resurrecting the boy. And he doesn't know what to do with that kind of resurrection. Some will run. Some will collapse. A few will rise. But none will forget. That's your power. Not in your looks. Not in your voice. But in your audacity to reach into his darkness and say, "I'm not afraid." That sentence is a revolution. It doesn't just shift the relationship. It rewrites his story. You're no longer just a lover. You are a symbol, an archetype, the woman who entered the underworld of his soul and survived. And that is unforgettable. Do not underestimate the violence of awakening. The psyche resists change. The ego fights for survival. So when you speak those words, understand what you are unleashing. This is not about romance. It's about alchemy, transformation, chaos. He may accuse you, dismiss you, call you names. That's the shadow screaming. Let it scream. Let him purge the poison. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be real. And real women are remembered, not adored, not worshipped. Remembered, because they leave fingerprints on the soul, not the skin. He will dream of you. Not always sweet dreams. Sometimes nightmares. You have entered his unconscious now. And the unconscious doesn't forget. It stores impressions like sacred wounds. That moment you said, "You don't have to pretend with me," was a mirror he never asked for, but secretly needed. It showed him the cracks in his armor, the emptiness beneath the noise, the hunger he disguised as power. You fed something holy inside him, and now nothing else satisfies. This is the paradox. He may never admit it, may never return, may bury your memory under layers of distraction, but he is altered. Forever. That's what truth does. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for validation. It arrives like fire, and leaves only ashes of who they used to be. You didn't come into his life to play a role. You came to break a spell, and that spell breaking may cost you everything, but it will give you yourself. You are not crazy for wanting more. You are not too much for needing depth. You are not dramatic for feeling things he won't even name. You are just awake. And the awake are always feared by those who sleep. He didn't leave because you were wrong. He left because you were right. Because you cracked his mirror, because your voice reminded him of a truth he buried beneath years of pretending, because the words you whispered didn't come from your mind. They came from the place where gods and monsters live, the place where all love begins, the unconscious. Don't ever shrink for a man who hasn't met his own soul. Don't ever beg for affection from someone who's afraid of his own reflection. You didn't lose him. He lost access to a portal most never find. He lost the woman who dared to see him whole. And one day, when the distractions fade, when the noise dies down, when he finds himself staring at a ceiling in silence, he'll hear it, your voice, saying what no one else ever dared. "You don't have to pretend with me." And in that moment, his heart will ache, not for your body, but for your truth. You must understand something now. Once you've spoken to a man's shadow, you can never go back to small talk. You can never go back to pretending. You've seen too much. You've touched something sacred. That changes you. Forever. It rewires your nervous system. You start recognizing masks instantly. You feel the emptiness behind charm. You hear the screams behind silence. Most women call it intuition, but Jung knew better. It's not magic, it's memory. Ancestral memory. Soul memory. You've walked through a man's unconscious before, and now you can't forget the path. That's why you feel alone. Because the world is still asleep, still seducing masks, still calling wounds romantic, still pretending that loyalty is found in text messages and empty promises. But you're awake. You know that love isn't flowers, it's fire. It's not comfort, it's confrontation. Real love breaks things, ego, illusion, conditioning. It shatters what no longer serves. And you didn't come to play nice. You came to burn illusions to the ground. That's why your words haunt him. Because no one ever spoke like that. No one ever dared to speak not to his pride, but to his pain. When you said, "I see the part of you that hides," you became more than a woman. You became the mirror, and the mirror doesn't lie. The mirror reflects the monster and the god, and some men will worship you for it. Others will hate you, but all of them will remember. You may not get a thank you. You may not get closure, but you'll get something deeper. Integrity. You'll know you didn't shrink. You didn't lie. You didn't play the game. You stood there, heart open, eyes wide, and whispered into the void. Most will never understand what that costs. To speak truth when silence is safer. To love the man beneath the man. To give without performing. But that is the path of the feminine warrior, of the woman who holds her own shadow. Because if you haven't danced with your own darkness, you can't hold his. If you haven't faced your own lies, your own hunger, your own grief, your words will fall flat. They will feel like manipulation. But when you've died 1,000 times and come back stronger, when you've kissed your own fear and lived to tell, then your voice carries weight, depth, truth. And truth. Truth doesn't seduce. It commands. It roots itself in the bones of those who hear it. That's why when you whispered to him, he didn't laugh. He flinched, not because it hurt, but because it cracked something open. And he wasn't ready. He didn't know that love could sound like that. Like a storm in a whisper, like a home inside a sentence. That's why he pulled away. Not because you were wrong, but because you were the first one who was ever right. He may come back, or he may not. That part doesn't matter. What matters is this. You changed something in him. You interrupted the pattern. You broke the spell. And even if he tries to forget, he can't unknow what you made him feel. You rewrote the definition of intimacy inside his body. You made depth familiar. You made presence addictive. And now he will look for you in everyone. Not your face, not your name, but that feeling, the one that said, "I know who you are, and I'm not leaving when it gets dark." That's the feeling that binds a heart. Not lust, not logic, but recognition, soul to soul, shadow to shadow, woman to man. And the irony is, he might spend the rest of his life trying to recreate what you gave him in one moment. Because the world doesn't train men to hold that kind of love. It trains them to dominate, to win, to chase. But when a man is met in his rawness, when he is not worshipped but witnessed, he tastes something older than memory, and no one forgets that taste. You are not here to heal him. That is not your burden, but you are here to awaken him. And awakenings are never clean. They come with fire, with grief, with resistance. They come with silence, with tears he won't shed in front of anyone else, with anger he won't understand. That's the cost of being the woman who sees. You trigger the death of who he pretended to be, and not every man will thank you for that. But deep down, beneath the stories, the pride, the performances, he knows. You were real, not convenient, not easy, but real. And that's why, years from now, when the noise has settled and the world has faded into static, he'll hear it again. Your voice, not loud, just there, soft, dangerous, eternal. And he'll remember the moment everything shifted, the moment a woman looked into him instead of at him, the moment you whispered something no one had ever dared say. You don't have to pretend with me. It will hit him in a way nothing else has. Not because you were perfect, but because you were present. That's the secret. The one no dating coach, no book, no algorithm will tell you. It's not about the right words. It's about the real words. The words that echo from your own soul into his. The ones you earned through your own descent, through your own heartbreak, through the nights you cried not because you lost someone, but because you found yourself. That's what makes your voice magnetic. You're not speaking for approval. You're speaking from knowing, from embodiment, from fire. He may try to replace you with beauty, with distraction, with newness. But you were never a body. You were an experience, a shift, a mirror that didn't flinch, a presence that didn't abandon, and there is no substitute for that. He'll smile. He'll succeed. He'll move on. But deep in the quietest part of his chest, something will always ache, not with regret, but with memory. The memory of being seen, not desired, seen. And that is what binds a heart, not chains, not guilt, but memory burned into the soul by truth. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a fire ritual. This isn't about getting him to love you. It's about you remembering that love was never something to chase. It was something to become. You became it. You spoke it. You carried it into the darkest part of him and left it there, glowing. And he will carry that light in places you'll never see, in conversations you'll never hear, in relationships that will never reach what you gave in silence. So don't wait for him. Don't check your phone. Don't build your worth around his return. You're not a pause in his story. You're the plot twist, the reckoning, the line he won't forget. And no matter where he goes, no matter who he touches, your voice will follow. Not out of obsession, but because you left him more alive than you found him. And life, once tasted, cannot be forgotten. So, say it one last time, not to him, but to yourself. Say it in the mirror, say it when your heart doubts. Say it when the world tells you to shrink. I see the part of you that you hide from the world, and I'm not afraid of it. That is your magic. That is your weapon. That is your legacy. Let it echo through every room you enter. Let it pierce through every silence. Let it live in every man who crosses your path. Because once a woman learns to speak to the soul, she becomes unforgettable. And that is how his heart will belong to you forever. And if you've made it this far, it means something inside you already knew. You weren't meant to love on the surface. You weren't born to play small. You were made to speak to the soul, to feel what others fear, to awaken what others silence. And now you remember who you are. You are not just a woman. You are the voice he'll never forget, the mirror he never asked for, but needed, the whisper that changed everything. So don't chase. Don't shrink. Don't wait. Let your truth be louder than your fear. Let your presence speak where words fail. Because once you've seen the shadow, once you've touched a man's soul, nothing else will satisfy, and nothing will ever make you doubt your power again. Let this video be your reminder. You don't need to be chosen. You are the choice. And if his soul hears you, he'll never be able to forget the sound.